Hello, everyone, and welcome to our fourth Claris Community Live. I am thrilled today to have Rick Coleman and Doug Wallace from Claris's product management team to give an introduction and a little bit of a exploration of what's new in FileMaker 2024. In addition to today's kind of overview session, we have 3 upcoming sessions, which we'll be opening registration for in the next few weeks on July 11th, 18th, and 25th, where we'll take deeper dives into semantic search, security, and the other things you can do with AI with FileMaker 2024. So Doug and Rick, why don't you take it away?
All right, so Doug, I don't know if you're going to share. Yeah, there you go. So I'm Rick Kelman, and I've got with me Doug Wallace. I am in product management here at Claris. Been here about 24 years, and my primary focus is on the FileMaker platform. But these days, certainly that includes where that intersects with Claris Connect and Claris Studio. And then Douglas Wallace, who will primarily be doing the presentation today, is the Chief Product Manager for the 2024 release. Has been flying around the world hawking this thing. So thank you very much, Doug. So I want to talk a little bit about the context of FileMaker 2024. It just came out less than a month ago, a little bit more than 3 weeks ago. And talk about sort of the process we use these days for what we call iterative feedback approach. And essentially, that means through ETS, through the community, through the ideas portion of the community, and our public backlog that we launched live on stage at Engage back in February. We received feedback that then helps form what it is that we will address and enhancements we'll make to the platform. And 2 of those are really handy in that our new public backlog on the community has the ability for people to vote and vote up on things, as well as the ideas section, and that's really useful for as product managers because we can see which of the things that we're doing get traction. I would say that the ideas section has been there for a while. It's got some really great stuff. It's a deeper backlog. Things like, people want horizontal portals. They want FileMaker Go for Android, field labels, layout and a layout. And those certainly are all there. And some of the ones that have been there a long time are pretty big ones to do. But we also have a great release that just came out in that public backlog that we put up in February when we launched earlier this month. I think 26 or 27 of those items came off of the in progress from the backlog into market. And looking at what people were most interested in, native support for Let's Encrypt was really high up there. But there was a number of integration things that we've done as well, and Doug will talk about in a moment. The ability to do write operations with the execute data API now, or upload and download files with the admin API. If you're doing automation and moving around of files and apps, or now you can use parameters and script names in your scripts that are doing callbacks performed on server for transactions, the ability now to do error logging and have that apply to WebDirect and the data API, extending it out to that. And of course, the one that a lot of people are talking about, and the technical word for it is native support for vector embeddings and semantic search, or I like to call AKA AI LLM, large language model. Doug will talk a lot about that. And so at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Doug Wallace, who's going to talk about the 2024 release.
Great. Thanks, Rick. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Doug Wallace. I work on the PM side. As you guessed it from the name, for those who don't know me, I'm actually half French, half British. And so I'm going to go through FileMaker 2024 and try to give you an idea of what we've been working on and do a bit of slide deck and then a bit of demo content so that you get a better idea of how the work that we've done is going to be able to help you create better apps. So the big message that basically we came up with FileMaker 2024 is around AI. So only with FileMaker 2024, you can quickly add new AI capabilities to your apps to get more value from your existing data safely and responsibly. And so what we want to basically get people to make sure they understand around leveraging AI in their solution is it is done in a way so that you don't actually have to spend time rewriting your application from top to bottom. You are experts in your field. You know exactly how your app works. You've created all the tables, the scripts, the layout, everything that makes it work properly. And you have the data inside it. And you don't want to start from scratch, rebuilding something else on a new platform or having to recreate a new FileMaker file from scratch to be able to actually leverage AI. So we've done it in a way to make your life a lot easier. To be able to actually do that, first of all, is we want to make sure you understand that Claris FileMaker is part of the Claris platform. There's going to be new tools that are going to be coming out in the future around Connect and Studio. And we want to make sure that people understand is when they're creating great apps using FileMaker, they should never forget that in some cases, Studio and Connect are going to really help FileMaker get to the next level. And so what we've done is we make sure that now the color branding across all the Claris products are actually the same. So we've changed the blue to the green so that Studio, Connect, and FileMaker have the same color scheme. So we just basically updated the icons for FileMaker so that now it's part of this great Claris platform family. So we're going to talk first about semantic search. So semantic search, what is it in layman's term? I'm going to try to actually explain in a way that normally I would say it, but she's not listening, how my wife will actually sort of get it. And so the way I explain to her is there's lexical search and semantic search. Lexical search is searching through an index. Imagine you have a book, you're looking for the chapter names, you go through the page. Basically, you look for a word in a field, it goes through the index, and it gives you the results of the record with that said word. Semantic search is around the context, the meaning basically of what you're looking for. And that's why we think at FileMaker with AI is going to be kind of a lot easier for FileMaker developers to get into because you already understand context. Everything in FileMaker is context-based. So if you understand that, it's going to be easier for you to, when you start leveraging semantic search, to actually use it in your system. So a great example that I always get from Andy Lecates, imagine the word shoes. When you look in a field called products, you type the word shoes. With index searching, lexical search, it will give you all the results with the word shoes inside it. But what about boots or sneakers? All of that, index search doesn't actually find them. And this is what semantic search is going to do. By leveraging a large language model, you're going to basically send that request to the engine, and it's going to give you all the results that have similarity with the word boots. So just basically getting new ways to get insight inside your data. So it's going to just make your life a lot easier and your end users to be able to actually find the data inside your system. So what do we do at Claris to get to that point? First of all, basically is leveraging natural language in FileMaker as easy as we can as a first iteration so that you don't need to actually have a PhD to be able to actually leverage it. So where we're doing it basically is around semantic search. So we've created basically this script step called perform semantic find, where you're going to be looking inside what we call an embedding, which is basically a file or text file, depending on how you use it, where you have similarities between word and context and meaning based on the information you gave to the large language model. That's basically what it does. And then you ask it questions and it gives you the answers. And then you can write scripts to do whatever you want on top of that. And we want to make it as easy as we can. So we've created a couple of script steps to be able to actually sort of logging easily into an AI account, do the semantic search, be able to actually retrieve the embedding that you're getting from the LLM, and then be able to actually move forward. On top of that, we're adding logging, we're adding everything to make your life a lot easier inside it. The one thing that's important on top of it, and everything that we do at Claris, is we don't put barriers into how you're going to leverage AI. So from day one, you can access public models or local models. The public one that we have in version 1 is OpenAI because it's the biggest one. It's the one that actually does a huge amount of work. We've been able to actually work closely with them. But on the other end, we know that some people want to be able to actually control who gets the data. So not everyone is happy to actually send data across to OpenAI. So you can leverage local models running on your hardware. So if you have a Mac, it's kind of a nice environment because the Apple chip is really powerful and can actually leverage a bit of that. But you can actually leverage kind of any OpenLLMs on the market. And on top of that, in the engineering blocks that we have, we've actually written information on how you can actually install a large language model environment where you'll be able to actually have your model living there and then sending the data back and forth. So depending on where you're based in the world, you could go for OpenAI or you can create your own local models in your systems, and that way you have more control. So we want to make sure that we give you everything that you have around that. So the configure AI account will give you the two options. You go for OpenAI or you go for others, and then you'll just basically give the URL endpoint of where your LLM is running from, and then you'll be able to actually sort of talk to it. All the information to install it is inside FileMaker Server, FileMaker Pro, in the installers, and then there's more stuff on the engineering blog at the top of that. And again, we have the logging, which is really important in AI to be able to figure out when you have issues and how you actually sort of deal with them. Next step basically is trying to make sure that you don't actually have to change the way you actually have your workflow sort of based. So the idea is that semantic search is going to work with your data. And then we're going to have iteration on how you actually sort of make even more use of AI around data that you have inside your system. In a lot of cases, like, well, I have a lot of PDF in my solutions. I need to be able to actually sort of talk to it. I want to find data inside a PDF or text document. Using indexed FileMaker isn't ideal, so I want to be able to actually figure out how it does. So I'm going to quickly do a quick demo for you, kind of give you an idea of what can be leveraged. So I'm just going to go back into my FileMaker Pro app. So our great PM, who actually has done a lot of work on AI, called Ronnie Rios, he's created this great demo, which just makes my life a lot easier because I don't actually have to build it, and it just works out of the box every time. So the way we actually created this file, or Ronnie created it, is we actually put documents, so they're text files basically, inside containers, and then we send those those text data to OpenAI LLM, and it takes the text, creates a similarity between the words and the meanings, and gives back basically information in numbers. All we have the question is, what does it look like? Kind of gibberish. So basically is like, this is the terms and conditions of Claris Connect. We send chunk of data, so roughly about like 200 words. We send it to the AI. It has the engine to actually learn it. And then the result that you get is either a vector file, so it's a container, or a text file. We encourage people to actually use the container file because the semantic search will be a lot quicker being done inside a container versus doing it inside a text file. But this is basically the result of that transformation of text into an embedding. So it doesn't mean anything for any of you. Basically, if you want to go through it, you can, but it's not really going to help you. So kind of trust basically the LLM is actually doing work for you. So this is connected to an OpenAI account, but I'm leveraging all the information that I send it to my account. So if I go and ask you a question of information that is cannot be found in this document, like who is Rick Kalman, and everyone knows Rick Kalman, so there should be answer for that. There is no information anywhere in this document related to Rick Kalman, and there's nothing about me as well. So we send information, can't find anything. Basically, you get a result out of that, and we ask on top of it OpenAI to give us a proper answer with meanings around it so we can find it. So if I do a search inside those documents and I go, what is curl? Because this document that talks about curl, the LLM is going to give me the result based on information that is actually found in those documents. So it's not going to go to the internet and figure out various meanings what curl could be about. It's only what is found in my document. So the result you get is basically curl is amount. And information sometimes you might find actually incorrect, but it's basically based on information inside it. And then on top of that, we're asking the data coming back to actually tell us exactly where that information is actually found. 2 points to make sure the perform semantic find is done locally on the file. It's looking at the container that's in your FileMaker solution, so it doesn't have to communicate with the internet. You're not actually doing trips back and forth with the internet. Everything's stored locally, which means you can do the search on a FileMaker Pro app, on a FileMaker Go app, pretty much anywhere without having to be connected to the internet if it's basically something that you want to do around that. Again, there's going to be more demos when we have the meeting next week on AI, and we'll have partners giving you more information on use cases and how it can be leveraged. Go back to the slide.
There are a couple questions came in. Yeah, so I think the biggest one is Mark is asking, do I need to create embeddings for every field that I want to be able to search semantically, or is there one embedding per table?
Well, it depends. So the thing is, you don't want to be the embedding to be too big. So the file you get back, you don't want it to be too big because you have to actually store it in containers, and the bigger the file is going to be, the longer the search is going to take. So it's really depending on how many records that you can have to actually, when you're playing with it, to decide is, okay, I could actually have everything inside of one embedding or multiple embedding. Through testings, this is what you can actually sort of come up with. But in a lot of cases, it's like how you're going to be sending data back and forth with the OpenLLM when you do the learning part of it. In some cases, it is easier to actually have small embedding inside your containers and actually do the search across multiple cases.
Yeah, it's also a question about speed. Is using semantic search faster on a text field?
It's faster to use the container. So always, as much as you can, use the container. We have the option for the text in case you need to actually compare results, basically based on 2 different LLMs. But ideally, you want to do the search through the container because that way the index engine doesn't actually sort of do anything on the file. It doesn't look at the data inside it. And so the container is really going to be a lot easier.
And I think there's been also several questions about data protection. Like, how can you use the semantic search feature without sending data to OpenAI or another public LLM?
Yeah. If security and the fact that you don't want your data to be mixed with any environment from the outside, leverage an open LLM. If you're looking for open source LLM, the best place to go is called huggingface.co. It's kind of the repository of pretty much every LLM that's coming out on the market. There's a great community around it. There's a lot of information on what the LLM can actually do, how it's been trained. Again, on LLMs, you have small ones, you have big ones. There's a whole universe basically of what they can do. But you'll always be able to actually find what you want out of that. So if security is the main issue and you want to be able to control it, leverage open LLMs. You can install it on like I said, like on a Mac, or you could use any of the hosting centers worldwide, whether it's Azure, AWS, to create a specific environment where your data is stored. It's all locked into your account, so no one else has got access to it, and you can actually sort of leverage that inside that system.
Yeah, and I'm just going to address one more question about what are the examples coming in the July 11th and July 25th sessions on AI. And I actually don't know yet. We're bringing in partners for both of those sessions. I know on July 25th, we'll have Vince Minano, and he's going to talk about how they've brought AI into Inspector Pro. But we have many other sessions coming up. And I will be surprised with all of you as we see those examples. And I did just, yes, I'm seeing it go by in the chat. I've already dropped the link for the July 11th session. That registration opens today. And we'll open up registration for the July 25th session, probably middle of next week. And I'll just also add, I'll do a wrap-up community post when I publish the recording that will also include all the links we share in chat today. So watch for that later today.
Cool. Thanks, Rosemary. So one other thing on the AI is, so FileMaker 2024 isn't the first situation where you've been able to actually leverage artificial intelligence inside FileMaker products. It started when in FileMaker 19, we released the core ML and the configure models to be able to actually leverage looking at images to actually give you information about an image or even text and stuff like that. So that was the early part of it. In FileMaker 2023, if you have it, you can leverage as well inside from URL and actually do a lot of work against that. What we've been trying to actually do is actually create action script step or script steps, sorry, and calculation functions just to make your life a lot easier so that you don't actually have to rewrite everything from scratch. So you have 5 script steps essentially around configuring the account and setting the embedding based on the whole data that you have on a specific found set, doing the search and then the logging, and then around on the other side, you have getting basically the embedding. You can decide whether you want it just the way it is as a container or as a file as a text. You have the cosine similarity, which is basically the text that I was showing you. You can actually have control around that just to say how the quality of the result that you want to get when you're actually sort of sending the information to the LLM. And on top of that, the important stuff is around like tokens. In other cases, there is a cost behind leveraging LLMs, especially if you use the OpenAI or any of sort of the public ones. Depending on the amount of information you send them and the work that you do with it, you're going to have a cost applied around it. It's not really high, but when you tend to actually send a lot of information, it can actually cost you quite a bit. And so those get token count and less token used give you an idea of how much information has been sent back and forth. So if you do see that too much info is being sent and it starts costing you a bit, you can control it, and because you have information in those functions. Again, if you want to leverage Claris Connect, part of the Claris platform family, we have 2 connectors, one with OpenAI and one with Clarify, and it's kind of an easy way. If you want to make your life a lot easier, all you have to do is connect, send the data to Claris Connect, and the connector can do a lot of the work for you in the background. So going into FileMaker Pro now. So with FileMaker Pro 2024, new script steps and functions that better leverage data API, JSON, and transactions mean developer can build faster apps integration that are easier to maintain. Like Rick was saying, is a lot of the work that we do on the product side with engineering, marketing, sales, is making sure that we get a lot of feedback from you. We listen to what you're saying, and then we iterate our functions so that what we do works for you. If we build things that actually do not work for a developer, basically it makes no sense. And so a lot of the work that we've done in the last couple of years is, again, producing a product backlog so that you can actually vote on the features that you do need, and then so that we know that what we're doing is going to work with you. Again, we have a marketing backlog as well, so that market information that we're going to be releasing or case studies that we're actually producing will actually work for you as a developer, for customers to have better messaging around it, or help you internally to leverage the word that actually Claris is a great platform to actually have use that. So I'm going to basically kind of touch into the data API. We've increased the amount of things that the execute FileMaker data API script step can do. Kind of liked it because it's opening up new doors where sometimes just to create a record and then related records in various sort of portals or tables with a bit of a pain, leveraging data API and JSON in a lot of cases is going to make life a lot easier. So we want to basically help you automate your scripts and your app. You've got great stuff. We just want to make sure that we can give you more tools to make your life a lot easier. So the FileMaker Execute Data API, originally in FileMaker 2023, allows you to read essentially data and metadata. And so now we've actually added all the other sort of operations. So you can write, you can delete, you can duplicate. We basically give you a lot more information. So it gives you better access to data kind of across the board. And like I was saying is, you can start scripting now and using that script step, be able to actually modify data without having to create new windows, with having to switch the context. So it can basically make your life a lot easier. Transactions, so every time we do updates, we bring enhancements based on your feedback. The one for this version is around being able to revert transactions in a subscript. Again, it's just to make your life a lot easier and your business logic around your scripts. So we just will help you on that one. A lot of requests for actually having more functions around how you leverage JSON. So the new one we added is to be able to actually make a JSON make array, and then a couple of the others to be able to kind of help you navigate the board. The last one that we've got on JSON is get live text as JSON. So it's something we've had for a bit now, where you send an image, you put an image inside your container, and then you have this function where you can actually get the live text. It would only give you the text. It wouldn't actually give you the position. So with this new function, it's going to tell you exactly on the image where the word that it's been able to find is located. And so afterwards, you can do a lot more things with that feature. Quickly, basically going to show you how the data API works for those that actually maybe never seen it. So this is a contact database that I have, kind of straightforward. So essentially I've got my contacts in my main table, which is essentially my contact table. So I've got first name, last name.
We're not-
Do
we're not-
not share
Oh,
it.
sorry. I just realized when I was talking through it. So this is my contact database, kind of a small one. So I've got the contact one where I've got the first name, last name stored in main table. And then I've got two related tables, one around the emails and the other one around the address. That way I don't actually overpopulate my main table, and so that I actually don't have too many fields in one table, because the better way in FileMaker is small tables, large amount of data, and not the other way around. And so in the past, when I had to create through a script a entry for someone where I could create the first name in one layout, and then sometimes I had to move to a different layout to be able to actually create the email address with the type, and then maybe to a third layout to create the address, making sure I was saving basically a unique ID in my script parameters. There was kind of a lot of work that basically sort of had to be done. With Execute FileMaker Data API, you're going to be able to actually sort of send as a JSON payload all that information in actually one go. So we all have different ways of actually writing a evaluate or let, depending on what you do. It was just basically to give idea to showcase where the information is coming from. So basically is I'm going to do an action, which actually is a create, and I'm going to specify the field in my layout that I want to talk to. So the field data essentially is all the fields actually located in your layouts. So with Data API, you need to actually have all the layouts, all the fields you want to talk to in that layout. Otherwise, you won't be able to actually write information. So there's an element for layout. You specify the layout where all those fields are actually located, and then you can actually write them. If they're not on that layout, the payload won't be actually interpreted by the engine, and so the action won't actually work. So the result will be that it will tell you that the payload has been received, because if the format is all right, it will actually accept it. But if the field is missing from the layout, then it's not going to actually sort of make the changes that you actually requested. So in my case, basically, I'm using first name, last name, and then in the field data, I can actually either use basically the table occurrence and the field name where it's located, or I can actually add it as a portal data. So depending on how your system is actually stored, whether you've got multiple portal data, whether sometimes maybe you change the layout, the table occurrence name, sometimes it is really up to you to be able to actually leverage it. But essentially, for this example, this is the information that's going to be sent across, and it's going to create data. Again, when you're playing with it, it's going to be a lot quicker on the server than it is basically locally. It's just basically the way that the API. So if you're sending a lot of information, just run the script on perform script server. So for example, if I run it now, it's going to quickly basically create on the server multiple entries for me. And I actually don't have to worry about what it's doing. And when it's finished, it will basically just give me a callback with a script telling me it's actually done. The reason it's actually quite slow is I've done some stuff to actually leverage random image using a AI that I was playing around with, but you can actually do a lot of stuff around it. So kind of straightforward, but again, I can actually create easy records between different table occurrences without having to actually move anywhere. So that's the joy behind it.
Yeah, I just want to like reiterate, there's a question about this script step that it is slower than going to a new card window to create a record and then take that key back to the original script. So what can be done to make using execute data API faster?
So like I was saying, is run it on the server, because that way the cache and the data file will be a little closer to one another, and so you'll have better speed on the environment. We've seen feedbacks basically saying that it was actually in a lot of cases not as quick as people were imagining. So we're playing around with the engine in the background to actually see how we can actually make even quicker. What we've did noticed is when we have tables that have a lot of fields, it's actually kind of slowing down, even though no information is being grabbed at the API. But yeah, we're playing with it and we're trying to figure out very shortly whether in the next update we can actually increase the speed of the data API so that more people can actually leverage that. Again, it's the data API inside the FileMaker file, so it doesn't actually use the data API on the server. It's actually inside the FileMaker file. So Execute FileMaker file doesn't run specific on server, it can run locally. So you can have it running on a Go, on a Pro, or pretty much anywhere you want to. It is not the same as the data API where there's a data allowance. So it's kind of, even had the same name, they're being used in a different environment. Share my screen again.
Yeah, I think there's a question about addressing fields. Do those fields have to be visible on the layout, or can they be off screen or hidden when creating records with the data API?
They have to be on the layout. So if they are in the gray area, they would be picked up by the data API. But yeah, they have to be seen by the engine. So if they're on the layout and you can see them, or if the engine can actually see them, then you'll be able to actually sort of leverage that. Again, based on feedback and just to make sure we advance the whole platform, we've increased the compliance that we have on the data. So now we've actually added a couple of new elements and new functionality with OData so that it's easier for people to actually sort of start playing with it. If you haven't started sort of playing with it, it's kind of the replacement of the VC. It has more security and there's a lot more thing you can do with it. Essentially, you can like create entities really nicely, but you can actually even create like fields using OData in a nice, easy way. And again, we have a couple of refinements that we've actually added out in the systems. So the first one is a shortcut can open quickly. Kind of straightforward, basically, is you want to be able to quickly go to a script or a table, you know the name of it, but your system has a lot of scripts. Similar to what you do on a Mac with Spotlight, AppleCare, type in the search, and then you'll have all the results coming in, and then you can do whatever you want with it. And the next one is we've added local notification to FileMaker Pro. So we had it for a long time on Go. Now it's actually working on Pro and on Windows. And then again, based on feedback, we've added more information inside the import log, especially around the themes and the value list. In the future, we'll have even more information. So when importing the elements inside the FileMaker, but we'll see how it works. This is a quick screenshot of how it works. They open quickly, very similar to Spotlight. Type in the word either from the layout you're looking for or the scripts, and then when it's found, you can actually double click on it and it will take you straight to that page. And then on the other side, you have the local notification of a script. Again, you can manage basically information being sent, and you have the options to control what the buttons do inside the notification, and they can run script for you at any moment. That local notification is actually sent to the OS. So even if you close the file and you set a timer for like an hour, once the timer is actually done, it will actually pop up the notification. If the file is closed and your script is looking to actually access the file, it's not going to do anything. And so, potentially, if you recreate your script so that it reopens the file, you'll be able to actually do more stuff with it. And again, a lot of the work that we do on the FileMaker side is around performance, stability, and reliability, both for FileMaker Pro, FileMaker Go, FileMaker Server, and FileMaker Cloud. We fixed about 200 issues on Pro, roughly the same on the server side. And all of that basically is coming from direct results of feedback from the community, from yourself, whether through the ETS, the community website, custom success customers, our support teams. All of that is helping us basically be able to actually fix as many of the issues, whether they're related to old features that actually are having issues with old tools that we use inside of FileMaker that kind of getting outdated, or whether it's related to the OS being updated. That's how we actually fix the stuff for you. Gonna go now into FileMaker Server 2020. Sorry?
Just hang on. There's a
lot of questions, sorry.
discussion about open quickly in the chat. So I think like the big question is there a way to disable it at, or will there be a way to disable open quickly at the privilege set level and not just via a custom menu?
So currently, no, it's done through custom menu because it is in a menu. So that's how you basically control the type of information you want to actually be able your users to actually interact with the menus. So same way you've done it with your scripts, and you decide which script basically can actually be seen, or same again when you want to control how they create new records, access to new. It's basically on the menu. So if you already created custom menus, bit of work is you have to go into your custom menu and actually deactivate the open quickly. We're looking around to see whether we could potentially have different ways around it, but essentially for now, it is being managed through the custom menus. And again, it's using all the privilege sets in the system. And so if by using the privileges, if you haven't got access to a script, to a layout, you won't be able, the end user won't be able to actually get access to it. So it'll actually sort of save you there. If you have large amount of users in your system and you have a custom menu, then the easiest way for you to actually do it now currently is just to go to your custom menu, remove access to open quickly, and that way none of the users will actually have access to that feature. So FileMaker Server, we've done a bit of work on making what I call basically FileMaker Server, and especially admin console, even more boring than before, so that when you set it up, when it's been deployed, once you've actually got created your script steps, your backups, all the settings, it should basically just run in the background without having any of the work being done on a daily basis to make sure that it's up and running. So with FileMaker Server 2024, native support for certificates and optimized console controls mean administrators can deploy more securely with less hassle. So one of the first features we've actually implemented was to be able to leverage Let's Encrypt inside FileMaker Server, and in a way that we kind of leverage the meaning behind what Let's Encrypt is all about. So in a lot of cases, the first thing that most people will actually look at Let's Encrypt is it's free, so it's great. It's like, yeah, we love that, it's free. But the one thing that's actually really cool with Let's Encrypt is the vision behind it is that security should not be something that you kind of think you should be doing. It should be something you did from day one. And the best way to currently keep your data very secure is actually having an SSL certificate. If you haven't got one nowadays, eventually it's going to create issues for them. And so that's what it basically goes is we want people to actually have SSL certificate. It should be easy to set up, and it should be something that everyone has. So the policy is they give it away free of charge, and they make it kind of straightforward for people to be able to leverage it. What we have done inside of the admin console is to be able to leverage the automation that is required behind Let's Encrypt. So Let's Encrypt creates a certificate that you actually install through like any other system inside the FileMaker server, and it needs to be updated every 90 days. policy Let's Encrypt is in order to be even safer than the other certificate authority, which normally ask you to update your certificate once a year. They want you, and you have to do it, is update it every 90 days. And so we don't want basically people going back every 90 days to admin console to just renew the certificate. We want FileMaker Server to be boring and just do the job. So we've created a script step that you can actually leverage through the the scheduling, where every 90 days, the renewal of your certificate will be done automatically, whereby your FileMaker Server will talk directly to the Let's Encrypt sort of system and will actually renew the certificate for you in the background. Currently, this feature is only on macOS and Ubuntu, and we are looking to actually bring that to the Windows world in the future. There's another thing that we've actually done on the admin console as well. The most important part of it basically is around controlling, scheduling, and be able to actually see everything in just one page versus having to actually sort of move around all around the place. So I'm going to quickly go into the admin console. So this is the entry point for my server running locally. So the one area where we've actually done a bit of work is based on a lot of information people they were going is we have the backups where we can actually manage the settings, but it's kind of not the right place to be there, and it's a bit of annoyance. And we wish we had a better place to be able to actually create more backups. And then on the other hand, we have the scheduled environment where we could do multiple things. But so the idea was to actually put all of that together into one environment where, first of all, you could actually create all the type of schedule from one environment and be able to actually decide what information you want to see on the screen, and everything actually sort of goes with it. So in order to create a new schedule, whether it's a backup or any type, you just click on schedule. You can select the type. So you have FileMaker scripts, a system script sequence. You can verify a file, or you can actually create a backup. You can decide where that target is going to be. You can select the type of database it's going to have. If I give it a name, I'm going to test. Oops, sorry. I'll call that test2. And I'll do a verify with it. I'll just ask it to keep 2 copies and just run daily and just create that. So now basically I've got this new backup. When I go into my backup, I'm going to be able to actually get access to the main backup schedule. So that's the one that's automatically created by FileMaker, or a new backup schedule where I'm going to be able to actually see all the various sort of backups that I've actually got in that environment. And it tells me when it's actually going to be running. I can do it now if I want to, and all the information around it. So the idea is we want to make sure that you have pretty much all the information you need to be able to create whatever you need. Again, if I need to create a system script, this is where I'm going to be able to actually leverage this reload Let's Encrypt certificate, which I can run every 90 days on my system, and it's going to do everything for me. And we have also the garbage collection, which is for WebDirect, which can be run on the main server, the primary server, or the secondary machines, and as well verifying the data if you need to. Some other thing that we've been adding on top of that is on the configuration. So it's around the way that cache works and some of the work that we are doing for the future. So in FileMaker 2023, we released a new feature called persistent cache. What it's actually doing is duplicating the cache that is actually inside the FileMaker server in the FileMaker service directly on your memory inside your machine. So it's basically duplicating so that you have 2 caches running at the same time, which means that if your database server or any of the system inside the FileMaker crash and the data that's stored in the FileMaker server cache is actually lost, the persistent cache will still be alive. And when the database server engine restarts, it will grab the persistent cache, put it back with your main data file, and that way you're less prone to actually have issues with the system. On top of that, we have another feature called persistent cache sync to disk, whereby that cache is triplicated on the SSDs or the hard disks, so that you have, in case your system goes down for whatever reason, power outage, you have a copy of that cache to the disk, And then when you start your FileMaker server, that way you can everything's going to be restored, and then the cache is going to be copied to the data file, and then your system is going to actually be all safe. And then it goes to the last one that we've had, FileMaker 2024, which is the database server auto restart. If for whatever reason your FileMaker server service crashes in the background, there is something now running on the server that will actually get it to actually auto restart, so that you don't actually have to actually manually go inside that. The last option is an option to actually block new user. It's kind of useful when you're having to actually do some modification to layouts and you don't actually have anyone connecting to the server, but you don't actually take the file off the server and be able to actually do work around it. You can actually block any new users. So users currently on inside the FileMaker solution won't be disconnected, but no one else will be able to actually get into the system. So there's a couple of sort of new features that we've implemented inside the FileMaker server. And again, all these features are available through the the admin API. Sorry. And talking of that, there's a great tool that I kind of use quite a bit, which is called the admin tool, which is created by a partner in the US called Mike and Duncan from Soliant. And I'll just quickly show you because it's been updated recently to leverage all the new features for FileMaker 2024. So essentially, it's a nice tool. It's a FileMaker app. You can actually have it running locally. It gives you access to admin API and the data API. And from there, without having to actually sort of write anything, you can actually just leverage it. And so you can, you can connect to it. You have access to all the databases. You can create new schedules. Pretty much everything that you can do through the admin console can be done through the admin API. And so it's a nice way to create your own environment. And again, you have the data API, so that way you can actually see how it works and start learning if you're not using it. As in the future, this is where a lot of the work that to be able to integrate with other system will make a lot easier. There's a lot of other tools on the market, actually really good. But this is the one that I saw recently that was updated not long ago. Back to my keynote.
Thank you. Anything else, Doug? Because there are a couple specific server questions that I think.
Okay. Just one more thing. So basically, is a lot of work as well has been done, like on admin API. We've updated the FileMaker developer tools to have more options. And again, on the servers, the copies XML, we're adding new elements like the hash script steps and the objects, just to make life a lot easier to be able to leverage servers copies XML, whether using through Inspector Pro, FM Perception, all those out there. A lot of stuff has been done. I'll quickly go through into FileMaker Go for 20 seconds. So one of the things that we've been doing is bringing parity from FileMaker Pro 2024 to Go. There was a lot of features that we had where we haven't completely implemented them to be able to actually use them on an iPad, on an iPhone, especially now with the new iPads being very powerful. So things like importing any type of binary data into container fields was missing, importing through script steps, more type of data sources was a big request from a lot of people. The two things that we haven't really got yet for the import are XML and Excel. This is due essentially through file format and then where sandboxing kind of works. We're trying to actually sort of see how we can fix that. And just a quick couple of things that we've done just to ease out the pain of leveraging FileMaker solutions on Go. So now we can support widgets on iPad and iPhone, really straightforward to actually use it. And that way you can have access directly to your favorite apps on FileMaker. Again, through FileMaker Go, you can have now the option to automatically launch an app. So you don't actually have to actually get people to figure out whether the server is being hosted, and fix the bug that was annoying people, whereby now you can directly move out of the browser inside of FileMaker Go and go directly to Safari or Chrome if you have that by just using a script step. So this is a quick screenshot of how the favorite works. You can have up to 5 favorites inside the system. It's all managed when you actually launch FileMaker Go, and you can do quite a lot of things with that. And very quickly, again, the messaging on the AI, which is why we're having community live session next week on AI, and there's a lot of information on the community and various forum. We want to make sure that people are aware that they don't actually have to go alone into the journey of leveraging the potential of AI in their apps. There's a lot of great stuff that's been done. We had Ronnie Rios doing a session at Keynote, but we had already Chris Hippolyte and Jennifer Nicoletti doing sessions on leveraging AI. There's going to be a few more. There's a lot of partners that have actually created demo files. There's a lot of podcast streaming across the world. And we're going to put content on our community academy as well. And you have partners that can actually help you leverage a lot more of how to leverage AI and specifically semantic search inside your solutions. Last one, basically just going is if you, in some cases, have issues, how to actually modernize or actually check what is not working properly inside your solutions, there's a lot of tools out there that can actually leverage that. Inspector Pro, Base Element, FM Perception, they're really great. And they're all being updated to actually leverage as much as we've built inside the FileMaker 2024. So that will just make your life a lot easier. A quick one again, lifecycle management is something that we want to basically get people to really understand. It's really important. Having a production environment, a testing environment, and a development environment. I know sometimes a bit of a pain to actually do yourself. So just leverage community. There's a great tools from Proofgeist called AutoFMS. There's Devin, which is really, really nicely done. There's going to be more tools in the future being created, I think, and it's just going to make your life a lot easier. But having this vision of actually getting into your FileMaker solution, into how ITs actually understand how it should be done, will just make everyone a life a lot easier. And that's it for the slide. Now we can go through a lot more of the Q&As. Actually, there's quite a few in there, so.
Yeah, I think like going kind of way back, there was a question early on about will server be available on an Ubuntu 24?
So currently is we only supporting 20.04 and 22.04, both on Intel, AMDs, and ARM, well, the chipset. We're looking at 24 maybe next year, not for now. There's always a lot of, like I said, changes inside how the kernel actually reacts. So in order to not to create too many issues, we kind of wait 6 to 9 months before sort of starting major work around it, because we never know how those OSs actually react. So it will come out next year.
Question about how does persistent catch affect server speed?
So from the test that we've done, if you have persistent cache both in memory and disk, what we've noticed is you'll get like a 5% slowness or increase in speed issues. It's not that much basically, because essentially it's doing on the fly. And so memory nowadays is really quick. And if you have SSDs, it's going to be as quick as well. But depending on but it all depends on the amount of cache. Like if you have set up your cache to a, I don't know, something like a, I don't know, 64 gig, it's going to basically have a lot more speed issues, because every time it's going to have to copy more data. So maybe you have smaller cache, you had the issue, but on average, I think no more than 5% is what you're going to get out of that.
And this is sort of, I guess, a general platform question is, can you give any examples of where there are performance improvements in server or pro?
So in general, there's a bit of everywhere. Like the one that comes to mind is WebDirect. We've been working heavily on the CSS in the background to speed things up. And by doing this work on the CSS, it's been improving the design surface engine inside the FileMaker to actually create the layouts a bit quicker than before. We've done some update to the Omni RB engine to make it work quicker. Yeah, there's not one specific areas where there's been issues, but like recently I was talking to a partner at a conference, and he was just going is, well, we've noticed just by updating from FileMaker 18 to 2024, in a space of test for a couple of days, we've just saw an increase of about 10% of everything working quicker. So there's a lot of work in the background that's being done just to get this performance at a high level. It's really hard to actually just say because it all depends on the solution that actually is built. So like we don't want to go into saying is, hey, install FileMaker 2024 and get 20% in extra speed straight away, because if it doesn't happen, you're not going to be happy with us, and we like people to be happy with us, at least me.
And also, I just want to call out and give Rick and Doug a chance to address. There's been a lively discussion in the chat about how FileMaker seems to have gotten away from its roots of being the database for small business and everyman. And I think there's sort of two threads in that discussion. One is complexity with all this sort of super programmy, not low code capabilities. And on the other side, cost has become prohibitive for some people as single copy purchasers. So I don't know, Rick, Doug.
Yeah, so I mean, I've been certainly watching this lively conversation about how FileMaker's advanced up and to the right, and certainly we have added a tremendous amount of power. There was a lot of conversation about JSON and do I really want to learn that kind of thing. But in today's world where you're needing to integrate with a number of other apps and services, RESTful APIs, JSON are definitely the tools that you want to be working with. That being said, everything that we've ever built in FileMaker, for the most part, you can still do. So it's not like you have to use these more advanced tools to accomplish the same things you've been accomplishing before. So it's trying to get that balance. And you can also look at, in the larger picture, looking at the Claris platform. And if you look at what we're attempting to do with Claris Studio, how we're attempting to integrate Claris Connect and make it an easier way to be able to integrate with other apps and services, we're certainly looking at that larger picture. And of course, we do have to worry about when someone first approaches the platform, the learning curve, and it can be quite steep. So all of those things we keep in mind, but for the last couple of years, we have really been focusing on giving as much power as possible to our advanced developers that have been doing this for a long time to be able to solve problems sooner rather than later. So, Doug, I don't know if there's anything additional you want to talk about that. As far as the cost of the product, yeah, I hear you. It's a little bit outside of what product managers control, but we are, and almost hesitate to bringing this up, but we are obviously looking at providing our entire platform for free, so that people don't have that initial cost. And then if you go to deploy something and host it, is where we would begin to charge. And we're still working towards that. Doug, anything else?
Yes, the one thing we haven't got much time, but the one thing I kind of mention always is like sometimes people think that we're not reacting to fixing issues or bugs or changes that we do. One of the things, and when we talk about the Claris platform, and the one thing that we kind of say is there's a lot of things in FileMaker where we have old code. And one of the north side that we have in engineering is we want to make sure your solution actually keep on working the way they are. But at the same time, FileMaker is built out of a lot of third-party tools. We have stuff like Chart Director, we have OmniRB, we have an OpenSSL, and we have to actually make sure that those systems are actually updated regularly for security purposes, because a lot more now, basically, people around the planet, you have people trying to actually hack into your system. And at the same time, we have, most of you have customers or even solutions that have been running for a long time. And we just want to make sure that those systems actually don't actually come falling apart. And so in a lot of cases where we want to basically fix a bug or an issue with part of the system, it would mean basically doing a huge amount of changes that would potentially get you to actually do a lot more work. So which is why we have this, we talk a lot about Studio and Connect and FileMaker, because you'll see in the future that a lot more work of things that actually don't work the way they're meant to be working can't really be fixed in FileMaker unless we will build everything from scratch. And that's where we're going to leverage a bit more Studio. Example, charting in FileMaker. We use Chart Director. We've updated the code to have now leverage Chart Director 7, but we can't leverage it too much because we don't know exactly how it's going to react with all your solutions. So instead of actually us rebuilding from scratch a chart engine inside the FileMaker, the idea is to leverage a bit more what we can do with JavaScript inside WebViewer, and in the future, leveraging Studio as well. So it's taking time because, like again, is we want to move forward with your solution and you on board without breaking what you've built. And this is the core focus of the PM team. I used to be a FileMaker developer. I would hate if anyone basically did an update of a system and break my system. I think Rig is the same and Rosemary is pretty much the same. So we kind of go that way, is we don't actually break anything that you've built, and we want to basically be able to actually get you to go to the next level. I think, yeah, we could go on basically around pricing for ages and actually always find kind of variation. But one of the things that we've noticed recently is a lot of people that actually were leaving FileMaker because they were kind of saying is, yeah, but I can find cheaper competitors on the market. And eventually 2-3 years down the line, they're coming back saying, yeah, but FileMaker is the only one that can actually give me the option to be able to do whatever I need to do without putting barriers. And again, we've proved that through the OpenAI and OpenLMs. We don't actually put a barrier. And so this is really getting a lot of customers to actually come back because they do like the fact that we want to make sure that you can do what needs to be done with FileMaker, and keep you using it for the long run. So.
Well, thank you, Doug. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, everyone who stuck around a few minutes longer and engaged in our conversation. Just a couple things to wrap up. I'll be posting a wrap up of this with the video in the community, so watch for that later today and join in the conversation there. We are happy to continue this conversation. Also, just want to announce that the FileMaker Pro Expert certification is available at long last. You can find it in Claris Academy on the Get Certified tab. It should be right at the top. And I think we've plugged the upcoming live streams several times. I'll put those registration links also in the community as they become available. So thank you for joining us today, and I hope we see you in 2 weeks for our AI live stream, diving into what you can do with semantic search. Take care, everyone.